The F-35 on the defense of Ukraine. The most coveted fighter jet in the world may soon become one of the shields protecting Ukrainian skies. The US is asking the EU for this. European allies are urging Trump to deploy F-35s in Romania as a security guarantee for Ukraine. And this request is not something extraordinary since Trump himself announced US air support.
When it comes to security, Europeans are ready to put boots on the ground. We are ready to help them with various issues, especially most likely from the air, because no one else has what we have, and neither do they.
What they don't have, Trump personally showed Putin during their meeting in Alaska. The American president specifically arranged for fighter jets to fly directly over the Russian dictator's head. At that time, a B-2 Spirit strategic bomber flew over the Elmendorf base in Anchorage, accompanied by the well-known F-35s. How can the F-35s help close the Ukrainian skies? Why are these fighters considered the best in the world? And do the Russians have any aircraft that could compare to the American fighter? We'll tell you all about this in just a moment. It should be noted right away, there is no talk of transferring F-35s to Ukraine. However, American fighters can still protect Ukrainian skies. It's just that the pilots will be Americans. According to CNN sources, as part of providing security guarantees to Ukraine, if a peace agreement with Russia is reached, the US may send pilots to carry out air missions.
The US is considering options to strengthen the protection of Ukrainian airspace. And here, it's worth immediately drawing certain parallels with Israel, where the US also provides assistance.
The Israeli assistance scenario has been discussed repeatedly. It became a particularly hot topic in April 2024, when Iran launched a large-scale attack on Israel with strike drones and missiles. Targets were launched both from Iranian territory and by Iranian regime proxies from Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. At that time, US military forces, supported by destroyers in the Middle East, shot down more than 80 kamikaze drones and at least 6 ballistic missiles launched from Iran and Yemen. It was at that moment that journalists once again raised the question of whether the Americans planned to help Ukraine shoot down drones as well. But they responded that from the very beginning, the US made it clear they do not plan to participate in combat operations in Ukraine.
I knew this question would come up. Listen, these are different conflicts, different airspaces, different threat landscapes.
But now the situation has fundamentally changed. The US is now ready to provide air support as part of security guarantees.
By the way, it's probably no coincidence that there is now a publication in the American media about how much it costs the US to protect Israel's airspace. This could also be a signal ahead of strengthening this protection for Ukraine. The Americans are already using Israel as an example to start calculating the costs, so that later they can say, look, this is how much it costs. Be prepared, there will be a price like this for Ukraine.
If Ukraine had a squadron of F-35s, you would have already defeated Russia. And perhaps in the future, the F-35 will become part of Ukraine's air force.
The F-35 combines the functions of 3 aircraft on a single platform. The fighter jet's maximum speed is 1,906 kilometers per hour, and its combat radius is about 1,000 kilometers. It features the latest avionics and a multifunctional radar that is effective against both air and ground targets. And there's also the helmet.
That is, it also has a helmet-mounted targeting system. What does that mean? The plane flies forward, and by turning the pilot's head, the missile can be guided left, right, up to 90 degrees, or even programmed. It first launches forward, then turns and heads toward the target that is pursuing the F-35 aircraft. It gives the pilot a 360-degree view because it receives not only what the pilot sees with their own eyes, but also information from the electro-optical and radar systems.
And the helmet also highlights targets in the air and on the ground, friendly units, and so on. Moreover, it monitors the pilot's health status. So what can the Russians counter with? The Russian counterpart to the F-35 is the Su-57, a 5th-generation multi-role fighter, but only on paper. The story of this Russian fighter began back in the early 2000s when Russia wanted to compete with the legendary F-22 Raptor. The Russians quickly built a prototype and in 2004 went to Putin with assurances that in just a few years the bird would be in the sky. However, the first tests only began in 2010. And even then, they used the Su-35 engine, which simply cannot sustain supersonic flight in cruise mode, a requirement for fifth-generation fighters. In reality, though, comparing these two aircraft is quite difficult, simply because talking about the characteristics of the Su-57, which exist only on paper, is almost laughable. And everything is kept secret anyway, so as not to upset the public too much. Russian developers claimed a new engine with a flat nozzle, which would make the fighter less visible to enemy radar. None of that actually exists. And also the most advanced radio electronics and stealth technology which no one else has. Moreover, while more than 1,000 F-35s have already been produced and have long proven themselves in real combat situations, by the end of 2024, only 22 Su-57s had been delivered to the Russian military. That includes the test units. But to be fair, the newest Sukhoi was also used in combat. This happened in 2022, after the start of the full-scale invasion. Ukrainian air defense was unable to shoot it down, but not because the fighter was so impressive. It's just that the Su-57 launched missiles at Ukrainian infrastructure only from Russian territory, simply so as not to ruin the reputation of the so-called wonder weapon.
In addition to production issues, the Su-57 still hasn't undergone extensive testing in real combat conditions. Although Russian sources claim that the Su-57 was used in the war against Ukraine, there is little independent verification. Moreover, international observers have raised questions about the quality of its assembly. Recently, at the Zhuhai Air Show in China, one of the displayed Su-57s had visible defects. The screws were poorly fitted and there were gaps in the fuselage. And this only increases skepticism about the overall quality of the aircraft. In this regard, there is a stark contrast with the F-35. The American fighter has undergone thorough testing and refinement, making it the most widely used fifth-generation fighter in the world. It has also been tested in combat across many theaters of war.
Do you think there is a chance that the F-35 and the Su-57 will ever meet on the battlefield? Or will the Russians do everything they can to avoid that? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to give us a like. And be sure to subscribe to our Arsenal channel so you don't miss any of the most interesting content.